Welcome to Active Living at the Active Life. My name is Dan Wooten and I host a monthly television program that focuses in on issues for older adults. Today's program is a very special one, and that is that we're going to focus in on memory impairment, cognitive impairments that older adults face, and specifically caregiving. We're going to look at forms of dementia, especially Alzheimer's, try to understand how we can be better caregivers. Where are the resources for individuals that are caregiving for those with Alzheimer's? We're privileged today to have with us David Marlowe. He's the Director of Programs and Services for the Alzheimer's Association, Georgia chapter located in Columbus. David, welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me.
We are trying to understand how we can help caregivers if they find themselves looking after somebody with a cognitive impairment. Tell us a little bit about the Alzheimer's Association and some of the programs and services that you offer that could help those individuals.
Well, as a national organization, we have a 24/7 helpline, an 800 number that can be called, and a caregiver in times of crisis can speak with an educated, well-trained person, compassionate, and they can receive resources from our area that we give them to help them through that crisis. In the event that I need to follow up with them, they'll let me know, and I can call them the next day or email or whatever and supply them with the resources they need. We also have support groups, for instance. There's one here in LaGrange. We have one in West Point, in Warm Springs. But they're all over my region, 11 county region. Okay. But caregivers need to get together and share ideas. You know, I can't get mom to take a shower. You know, does anybody else have that problem? What do you do? For instance, we have something called Caring Closet, and we give away free of charge incontinence supplies once a month. We have a lending library in our office, videos, books that people can check out and keep for as long as they need to learn more, to learn how to do their caregiving job better. 60% of people with Alzheimer's wander. So we have a program called Safe Return, and it allows a person with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia to be registered with law enforcement agencies nationwide, so that when they're found, if they do wander and they're found by law enforcement, they know who to contact, they know what medications they're on, they know what drug allergies they might have, and a picture of them identifies them, so it makes ID very, very easy. They have a piece of jewelry on them that connects them with that database nationwide. We do health fairs, so people, anybody who walks by our table, for instance, can pick up information. I regularly try to put something in the hand of everybody who walks by the table. And we have, just this weekend, for instance, we had a Latino festival in Columbus that a church sponsored. And so we had the basics of Alzheimer's and knowing the 10 signs of Alzheimer's in Spanish to hand out to that community. Anything we can do to make life easier because they're struggling.
Okay, let me emphasize a couple of things. Did you say all your services are free?
All of our services are free.
Okay, and it would start with a phone call.
Starts with a phone call or somebody walking in off the street.
Okay, well let's get that phone. Let's give that phone number right now.
Yeah,
and we'll put it on the screen.
1-800-272-3900. That will connect an individual with our Chicago office, and again, it's 24/7. That's our national headquarters. And then from there, if they need to speak with me, they make that happen through our database. Yeah, free is good.
Now tell us some of the resources you give to a brand new caregiver. Maybe their loved one has just been diagnosed or they believe that's the direction they're going in. You brought a packet with you, and tell us a little bit about that, and a book you also mentioned.
We give everybody a packet of information that's got a variety of resources in it. Brochures about communication, about how to deal with stress better, how to identify stress. Some of them can't see that in themselves. The basics of Alzheimer's talks about a variety of issues that surround somebody with Alzheimer's. How to get someone off the roads that's still driving, for instance. We have a link on our website that's remarkable. Our website, by the way, is www.alz.org, and a wealth of information.
Wow.
So visit that site. I recommend it.
ALZ.org. That's very
ALZ
simple.
Very simple. We have in here a list of long-term care facilities, assisted living facilities, hospice organizations, adult daycares, lots of options, in-home services that folks can contact and get some respite care. You know, caregivers need a break. They can't do it by themselves. A lot of folks think that they're the only ones who are dealing with this, and they're not. And they try to do it alone. I talk to people all the time, and the hardest thing for them to do is give up the direct care of their loved one. You know, just talk with a gentleman married 68 years, you know. That's a struggle. And at 68 years old, 68 years of marriage, not a young man. And that's hard physically. If a person tries to take care of somebody alone, they're taking time off their own lives. That's just too much stress. And a lot of it's physical, because while we talk about Alzheimer's being, we think about it being a memory-related illness. In fact, it will affect the entire body. A person's gait will change. They'll start stumbling, falling. They'll forget how to tie their shoestrings, to button a shirt, to brush their teeth, on and on. They'll become total care eventually. So it's tough physical work. Another resource we have in here is a book entitled The 36-Hour Day, and it's a textbook for people who are caregivers. The 36-Hour Day kind of describes what it's like living with somebody with Alzheimer's. The day goes on and on and on. A person with Alzheimer's sleep patterns, because of sundowning, often is affected, and so an apt title, I think. Wow. And it's always well received by people who read this.
Oh, so you have very detailed information in the book, but on the website they can get some quick,
right.
You know, if they feel like they just don't have time to read the book, they could be able to talk to you or go to the website and get some quick information.
Exactly. I talked with a woman recently who had been in a wheelchair for 50 years. She'd had polio, and it left her in a wheelchair. Now her husband has Alzheimer's, and she said she had no problem taking care of him, remarkably, from a wheelchair. But he was getting on her nerves. He wanted to be around her all the time. She couldn't talk on the phone by herself. She couldn't go anywhere. She needed someone to talk to. So I told her, of course, she could call me anytime, but when I told her about the 800 number, she just lit up. I could tell over the phone. She just loved the idea of any time of day being able to talk to somebody.
Wow, 24/7.
24/7.
Oh, that would be very helpful. I would assume someone in the middle of the night that has just so worn out and could use some insight or encouragement, they could turn to that telephone number. Wow.
And while we have support groups where people can meet, some folks can't get away. They can't afford to pay somebody, or they may live in a rural county where caregivers aren't accessible. We have a telephone helpline. Again, calling our 800 number, 272-3900. They can be linked to a telephone support group. I think it meets twice a month. So something for everybody. It could be somebody in the city that just can't afford, or it could be somebody in the country that doesn't have access to resources.
There's big decisions that go along with being a caregiver, and I guess one of the biggest is to decide when it's beyond your ability and you need to involve a facility. Is that accurate? That's one of the big decisions. And does the Alzheimer's Association help the individuals as they try to make a wise decision in that area?
We supply them with a list. We can't recommend a facility, but we supply them with a very thorough list in any community in which they live. And again, that's in my 11 county region. And they have to make that choice, you know. And it's a tough one. Nobody wants to put mom or dad or grandma in a nursing home. But it often has to be considered, you know, like I said earlier, it's shortening their life if they continue to try to take care of somebody that they really can't take care of. It's a hardship on the person with the disease, and it's not fair to the person who's the caregiver. But there are lots of options. We try to advise them about pay source, you know, and give them any financial relief that they might be able to take advantage of. But again, it's a harsh personal decision to make. And we help as best we can.
Well, tell us a little bit about the research going on. And I know a lot of research has taken place worldwide, has any progress been made on understanding the different forms of dementia and the best treatments, and any breakthroughs?
Unfortunately, this disease is very elusive to treat, to find a cure for. There is no cure. It is progressive. It will be fatal. Research goes on worldwide. This is not just an American disease. We've got 5.5 million people in this country, 2/3 of whom are women. Women live longer. It's harsh, and those numbers are growing. We've got 10,000 baby boomers a day turning 65, and so those numbers are increasing rapidly. Research goes on worldwide, and unfortunately, no great breakthroughs. There are theories all along. The Alzheimer's Association is very involved in research, and we get updates all the time on research possibilities that are out there. I say it often that whoever finds this magic bullet will be very famous very quickly and probably very rich. But the scientists think that the best way for people to live their lives are exercise, number one. If you can stimulate blood flow to the brain by exercising vigorously, you need to do so. That's most important. Eat well, eat a healthy diet, green leafy vegetables, nuts, fish, lean meats. Stimulate the mind with reading, with puzzles. My parents play Scrabble, about 80 years old. And then when my mother wins, she goes on Facebook and brags about it. So, but that's a good thing, that she can get on Facebook, first of all, at her age. But stimulate the mind. Reading is good. Lumosity is out there.
Good.
One can also participate in Trial Match. We have a program called Trial Match. And information is sent to our Chicago office, somebody's contacted, and they can participate in research that often involves memory skill building.
That's great.
Reaction time, that sort of thing. And then socialization is very important. Be with people. Because communication skills often erode because of cognitive deficits. People want to isolate themselves. They get away from their church groups, their friends, even family. They don't want to be around because they're embarrassed that they can't understand what's being said to them, and they can't converse, appropriately. They can't come up with the right word. This becomes not a watch, but an arm clock. They know what it is, they know what it does, but they can't summon the word watch. Well,
David, once again, let's give that telephone number, because to start this process of help from the Alzheimer's Association, they need to call.
That's the easiest way.
Okay, and what's the telephone number again?
1-800-272-3900.
That's wonderful.
They get a little bit of information, you tell them what you need, what your situation is, and they can help over the phone, and if I need to continue that assistance, they let me know.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very helpful information.
Thank you very much for letting me share.
Joining us now is Reverend Olin McLean. He is a longtime member of the Active Life, and he was a longtime caregiver. He served as a minister for 55 years. He's now pastor emeritus of a local church, and he joins us now, and we're going to talk about caregiving. Olin, how many years were you a caregiver to your wife?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
And Reba, and of course I've
Yes.
known Reba for many years, and we passed away last year.
Last year.
And I want to understand a little bit from the caregiver's perspective.
All right.
How, when you first started caregiving, what were some areas that surprised you, or that you had no idea that a caregiver would be responsible for?
One of the real problems I ran into early in was the fact that I could not leave my wife to go to the grocery store or to a doctor's appointment or any of those things that we sort of take for granted if we're not occupied with caregiving. But I was able to get some help in that area. and I'm grateful for that. But then to see the change in the attitude and the disposition and the regular living of my wife, as we had been married 68 years, and to see her go away from me and become a total stranger was the most heartbreaking thing that I've ever experienced in my life.
Now, you had mentioned to me before it was a very gradual process for Reba.
It was.
Okay.
Probably 10 years ago was the beginning of this, and we didn't recognize that in the early stages. But as time has gone by, I can look back, reflect back on some incidents that happened that should have been an alarm signal to me that things were not quite right.
Now, Olin, you as a caregiver, where did you turn to get help?
I was sort of lost as to what to do to begin with, but through it all, God has intervened, and she had a little bout of UTI, and went to the hospital, and they kept her a day or two, and when she came back home, the hospital sent home health care home with us. Nurse would come and help us in the mornings, and he had a man that came and helped her with her exercise, and they in turn contacted Three Rivers, which is a senior aid station, I guess I would call it, that's located in Franklin, Georgia. They sent a representative to interview us, and found out our needs. And my great need at the time was to have someone to stay with her during the times that give me a lot of free time to go to the grocery store, or even go to the bathroom without being in a wondering and worrying about it. So they were good enough to refer us then to this company in Noonan, Georgia, that trains and supervises and selects and monitors caregivers. And we were put on the waiting list, and they said sometimes take 6 months, but we had in 2 weeks we had a caregiver that came 4 hours on Monday, and on Wednesday we had one that came for 3 hours. I mean, on Wednesday came on for 3 hours.
Okay.
That freed me up so that I could go and do the things that I needed to do. That's one of the great things that I found along the way.
Now, as you look back on your experience as a caregiver, are there lessons that you learned that you would like to advise others? If somebody came to you now and saying, I'm starting this caregiving, and you were a caregiver for over 5 years, what would you tell them?
I would say there's help available. There's federal help, there's state help, there's local help, and don't be embarrassed or timid to ask for that help. If you don't know where to begin, Family and Children's Service, local facility could help you in directing you in the way you need to go. But there's help out there. There's not necessarily a lot of monetary help, but there are help in coming in and helping to take care of situations for you. And
how can this may be two different categories, but neighbors, family, friends, and then family, how is the best way that others could help a caregiver that's in a situation like you were, where you felt so confined and all? What was the best way that they could help your situation and someone in your situation?
I've had so many people come to me and say, what could I do? What can I do to help you? And I would most of the time, of course, ask for prayer, and then ask them if they could possibly spare a few minutes to come by and visit with us, or to sit with us while I maybe had a doctor appointment or cut the grass. That's a help that most people can afford, to just come and be there.
Yes.
To help us.
I never thought of that, the cutting grass, because it would be very difficult to be away. You couldn't do that, being the kind of caregiver you were required to be with your wife. And so those kind of daily maintenance tasks, friends could help with that, and family.
Yes, that's been one of the great, and you'd be surprised at the people that once someone helps you, then maybe your neighbors just see that someone's helping you, and they will offer. And it's sort of a snowball situation. You'll have more help than you can shake a stick at, or you can use.
Yes. Do you think that caregiving took a toll on your health?
Absolutely. For an example, about 6 months ago, 6 months before she passed away, it had gotten to the place to where she could not get up out of the chair without my assistance, and I was helping her and pulling her up, and lost my balance and fell backward, and struck the back of my head on some furniture, and they carried me to the hospital and did an EKG. It had developed an aneurysm on my brain. I have today an aneurysm as a result of the fall.
There's a lot of lifting and assisting that people don't realize with that.
Yes.
Well, Olin, I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of your experiences. I saw you as a caregiver. You were very loving, very patient, and I thank you for encouraging others, like you said, to not be embarrassed, to reach out, to call the numbers they need to see the right organization, so that they don't have to bear this all alone.
Amen.
So thank you for being here and taking the time to share that information.
And I would say in closing that anyone that's a caregiver, you're in my prayers every day.
We are back here with David Marlowe from the Alzheimer's Association, and just wanted to follow up our interview with Reverend Olin McLean. David, what are some of your observations from our talk with Olin, of any insights that you have, or areas that you'd like to stress after we had talked with him?
Well, Reverend McLean is absolutely correct that there is help out there. He would use Department of Family and Children Services, excellent resource. That's not one that's usually called upon for senior citizens, but then he called upon the Three Rivers Area Agency on Aging. And they are a tremendous resource. They, in turn, along with River Valley Area Agency on Aging to the south of us, in Columbus, for instance, they service people with disabilities and senior citizens. Meals on Wheels programs come out of there, non-emergency transport, nursing provisions. So there's help out there, absolutely, and he was right in using those resources. I wish he had known about us and had used us. Now he does, and he can share that information with others.
Oh, that's great. What can you say about that feeling of isolation that caregivers have, of when they are so tied into taking care of that loved one and they find no freedom to be able to break free or have free time to read or to get these resources? Tell us a little bit about, again,
it's absolutely prevalent. I know a couple, they live in Franklin, in fact, and when the person with disease, the wife, gets up in the morning, she goes from room to room looking for the right place to settle down in for the day. And often that takes hours. And she demands that her husband be right by her side as she seeks the proper room. So, when is he going to go to the bathroom or take a shower or shave? This is how he starts his day. So, much like a small child, I have a 2-year-old grandson, and he has to be watched. He'll get into things. A lady who works with me, her mother had the disease for 14 years, and she began putting aluminum foil and metal pans in the microwave and turning it on. She put paper in the stove and lit it. Very big problems, major problems. So getting a time just to take a shower, requires some help.
Now, because of the prevalence of cognitive impairment diseases and dementia, if people are able to get some of the long-term care insurance. Do you recommend that? Does that help provide any insurance of more caregivers to help them through this difficulty?
It does help, but a person needs to purchase that when they're much younger, because as they age, it becomes prohibitively expensive. So if they bought it when they're in their 30s or 40s, they've got something to bank on as they age, and it will pay for long-term care. But if they wait too late, the cost is just too much. Medicare pays for medical care only, in a long-term care facility. Not everybody can qualify for Medicaid. As a result, 80% of people with the disease are out in the community. I used to think as a nursing home administrator that everyone was in a nursing home, but no, they're 80% out in the community. So it changes everyone's lives, the whole family.
So by looking and exploring what resources are out there, that can help them. If they don't have long-term care, if they're limited as far as family members to help split up the caregiving and all that, they can turn to these resources you mentioned, and we'll try to put those telephone numbers on the screen, like we talked about, the Three Rivers Area Agency on Aging. But of course, the Alzheimer's Association, we're really stressing that people take that first step.
Exactly.
Make a phone call. Maybe they don't have time to read, but if they could get somebody and talk, and just one problem at a time, they could call that number and get very knowledgeable help. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. But if we don't know, I'll research it and find out and get back to them.
Okay.
Sometimes they need resources in Spalding or Pike County, and I have to do some research to find out what they need.
So the number is, again, we're going to have this on the screen.
Absolutely.
Tell us the number to call.
1-800-272-3900. We can help.
Well, thank you, David, for joining us today. And again, we have a heart for caregivers. They are sometimes out there alone, but they're not forgotten. And organizations such as the Alzheimer's Association are dedicated to help make their life simpler. And
That's right.
More fruitful. So thank you again for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you, Dan.
And thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a chance to come visit us at the Active Life, 140 Ragland Street in LaGrange, Georgia. Have a wonderful week.